so many years. And so I decided that I would try and do something about it. And taking my advice from Stan, I tried to do what governments couldn't do when I was Lieutenant Governor. I ran huge book drives, collected 2.2 million books, and many of you will remember that. The OPP did a great job in organizing this, Toronto Police Services as well. The military parachuted books into communities. The military took books in on the ice roads. We established libraries in all flying communities and in many others. 1.5 million books eventually were distributed. $30 million worth of books if you bought them on the market. I went out and raised about $7 million to establish reading camps. And last summer we ran, Frontier College, to whom I gave all the money, ran 40 camps, most in all the flying communities that wanted them. I established a book club for 5,000 kids, all the kids from kindergarten to grade 6 in the non-flying communities, plus a few others. And the kids receive brand new books every 3 months. Good books, and they're members of a book club. Plus other things. A creative writing award. Then my term as Lieutenant Governor ended. But my money that I raised was sufficient to keep it going for the next 5 years. And I'll be working with Stan and Frontier College as a volunteer to try to keep this going for years to come. Frontier College has got enough money from the donors that I got in the past to do it next summer, do another 40 communities, and we sent 100 people up, university students. The chiefs put in as many of their own young people to work with them, and it is a wonderful program. So I thought, however, that something had to be done about the issue of the residential schools and the damage caused by the family breakdown, which led to the children wanting to die. And so I talked to dozens of residential school survivors. I attended healing circles for the survivors of suicide. I went to huge gatherings of up to 1,000 Native people, organized for Native people to try and deal with the issue of family breakdown. And I decided that I would write a book to try and educate the public as a whole so that people could look at the issues from the inside. So I wrote a book. I wrote 4 nonfiction books, first of all. Then I wrote this novel, and it was described by the book reviewer of the National Post as echoes of a past wrong. That's why the title is there. And this book describes the life of a fictionalized Native person, but actually a combination of 3 people, 3 women who had been abused at the school in Fort Albany. Born, I put her in Cat Lake because I like Cat Lake. And born in 1956, goes to residential school, meets a priest, abused sexually over a 10-year period, returns home, hardly able to speak her language, bad depression, been put down constantly, told that she comes from a Stone Age relic of the past, a culture that's going to disappear. She begins to drink. She has 2 children eventually. She is abused. She leaves for Toronto, discovers that in Toronto she can live the life of a Native person, because there are big powwows, there's Native dance, there's Native culture. But then she has to return home, and she has to confront the problem of Native suicide. And her daughter is part of a suicide pact. And so I pull them all together in a healing circle, and with a positive ending at the end. And this book is now being adopted by high schools and universities, and by the Kingston Pen. There's a lot of interest in it. I was recently, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was asked to speak about it to the National University of Mexico. And about 2 weeks from now, I'm going to Albuquerque to speak about it there. And I have written another book which deals with the issue of loss of land, and but from a personal point of view, fictionalized personal point of view, to try and educate people. Because a lot has to be done to deal with the issue of racism toward Native people. In my personal opinion, and I'm speaking only for myself, I don't speak on behalf of the chiefs and all the rest, but my personal opinion is that more emphasis has to be given to the achievements that Native people are making to Canadian society today. There are thousands of teachers and doctors and lawyers and pipe fitters, people who have gone through, in large part, the provincial school system, where they have access to better qualified teachers, libraries, and all those sort of things that are on offer. We need to have justice get done for the Native children who live on reserve and who go to schools that are falling apart. We have no budgets for books, special education teachers. We need simple human justice, that they receive the same level of funding as non-Native kids. Stan Beardy, I've heard him say that Native people must look to the future and not find themselves handicapped by dwelling all the time on past wrongs. You can't forget them, but you've got to move ahead. You've got to take control of your life. We have to address racism in Canadian society as a whole, not just against Native people. And the place to do that is in the schools. Those of you who are my age probably remember when the campaigns for against litter, against tossing cigarette butts and cigarette packages out of cars, and it came into effect back in the 50s. And that started by teaching the kids in school. And the kids taught their parents. We need to do more about that, more about racism in our school curriculums. We need to improve, augment the involvement of civil society in First Nation communities. Frontier College, which sends 100 of their university students up into the Nan Territory, is a stellar example of what can be accomplished. These young people studying to be teachers and social workers, they go into the communities, their eyes are open, and they come back, and they have a different appreciation altogether for Native communities and Native people. And they all want to return. We need to have more activities like that, where there are more interchange between Native and non-Native people. But overall, we need to have a shift in consciousness in Canada. We need to reflect a bit about what happened in the United States in the early 60s, when the black people said enough is enough. when black writers came out to fuel the provide intellectual sustenance to the cause of black rights, when the huge numbers of white people from the northeastern part of the United States became involved. They worked with black people, worked with Martin Luther King, and they changed the consciousness of the Americans and their attitudes toward the rights of black people. We need to do the same thing here in Canada for Native people to deal with the issue of discrimination. And so that is my message to you today. It's been a pleasure.